When I saw her wiping away tears after that phone call, I didn't yet know it was just the beginning of the most terrible truth of my life. Miranda and I had lived together for 15 years. An ordinary couple from Tucson, me, William, spending most of the year in Antarctica studying penguin behavior, while she wrote scripts for television series. Our schedules never aligned perfectly, but we were used to it. Trust filled all the distances between us. Or so I thought. It all started 3 months ago when I returned from another expedition. Miranda didn't greet me the way she usually did. She didn't rush into my arms, didn't bombard me with questions about the penguins. Instead, I saw something strange in her eyes, a mixture of guilt and excitement that she tried to hide behind a smile. The first 2 weeks, I didn't pay attention to the little things. New perfume. A gym membership, even though she'd always hated physical exercise. But when she started doing her makeup every day, even for trips to the store, I felt something was wrong. Miranda had never been like that. She'd always been natural, casual. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone rang. I glanced at the screen automatically. Oscar. My heart sank. Oscar had been my best friend since college. He worked as a safety inspector at a large corporation and often came to visit us. We'd been through so much together that I trusted him like I trusted myself. But why was he calling so late? And why did Miranda rush out of the bathroom so quickly when she heard the phone ring? I couldn't just ask. No, that would be too simple. I needed evidence. The next day, I installed a tracking app on her phone. It was wrong, I know, but the suspicions were eating me alive from the inside. What I saw over the next week shattered my life into pieces. Hundreds of messages between Miranda and Oscar. Photos. Plans for meetings. They'd been meeting in New York when she supposedly went to meetings with producers. But the worst was yet to come. In one of their conversations, I read something that took my breath away. The doctor said everything went successfully. I can't keep this secret from him forever, Oscar. But I can't tell him either. It will destroy everything. He replied, it was the only way out, love. William must never find out. She'd had an abortion. From Oscar. My wife and my best friend. I sat in the darkness of my car for an hour, rereading it over and over. But I couldn't cry. Instead, a plan was born in my head. Not revenge in the usual sense. Something much worse. This was the moment I realized there was no going back. I began gathering evidence methodically like I prepare my scientific research. Screenshots, call recordings, photos with GPS tags. Everything that might come in handy. But most importantly, I didn't let on. For the next 2 months, I was the perfect husband. Flowers, compliments, romantic dinners. Miranda was confused but happy. She thought our relationship was reaching a new level. In reality, I was setting a trap for her. I found out that Oscar and Miranda were planning to meet at a series premiere in New York next month. She told me she was going alone. He told his wife Kelly, yes, he had a wife too, that he was going to a safety conference. But the real revenge was just beginning, and it would be something they never expected. I transferred all our joint property into cryptocurrency through a complex network of wallets. The apartment, cars, savings, everything was converted to digital assets that only I had access to. Technically, it was still our joint property, but finding that money without my keys was impossible. A week before their meeting, I did something no one expected. I flew to New York early and hired a private cameraman. Not a detective, just a guy with a camera who specialized in documentary filming. I told him we were filming a surprise for my wife. I got all the footage I needed. Them at the restaurant holding hands. Them entering the hotel. I didn't film more, I had enough. But I still didn't confront them. My revenge had to be more exquisite. Miranda was working on a new project, a major series for a popular streaming service. This was supposed to be her shining moment, the project that would make her name. The producers, director, the entire cast, everyone was thrilled with her script. And I also knew that working on this project was her worst rival from student years, Samantha Rich, who was now an executive producer. They hated each other, but professionalism forced them to work together. I created a fake email and sent Samantha anonymous information that Miranda was plagiarizing the script from an obscure European series. I forged evidence, found an old little-known Polish series with a similar premise and modified the dates and documents to make it look like Miranda had simply rewritten it. It was a lie, of course. Her script was original. But in the entertainment industry, rumors kill careers faster than truth restores them. And this is only half the story. Samantha immediately suspended the project and launched an internal investigation. The story leaked to industry media. Miranda's name appeared in headlines, not as a talented screenwriter, but as a possible fraud. But this was just the beginning. I contacted Kelly, Oscar's wife. But I didn't tell her directly about the affair. Instead, I accidentally hinted that Oscar had confided in me that he was worried about his work and needed support. I suggested she check his phone if she was concerned. Kelly was a smart woman. She found everything herself. When the scandal erupted between Oscar and Kelly, he naturally turned to Miranda for support. But Miranda was busy with her own crisis. Her career was falling apart. Contracts were being terminated, friends and colleagues were turning away from her due to plagiarism accusations. And then I delivered the final blow. I organized a family gathering. Invited Miranda's parents, her sister, my brother. Said I had important news. They all flew to Tucson, expecting perhaps news about my new scientific discovery or something pleasant. Instead, I showed them everything. Screenshots of conversations. Photos. Medical documents about the abortion that I obtained through legal channels, actually by bribing a records clerk. The reaction was exactly what I expected. Miranda's mother fainted. Her father started screaming. Her sister, who had always been close to her, simply stood up and left without saying a word. Miranda begged, cried, tried to explain. But there were no explanations. The facts spoke for themselves. I filed for divorce the next day. Thanks to my foresight with cryptocurrency and detailed documentation of the affair, the court granted all my demands. I got everything, the apartment, cars, savings. Miranda was left with nothing. Her family disowned her. Her father said he no longer had a daughter. Her sister blocked her number. Even friends who knew us both chose my side after learning the truth. What happened after that is worth hearing. Oscar paid his price too. Kelly took their 2 children and moved to another state. She filed for divorce and ensured he barely saw the kids. His reputation was destroyed. The story spread among our mutual friends, and everyone knew he'd betrayed not only his wife but also his best friend. But the cruelest part was what happened next. Miranda and Oscar tried to be together. After all, they loved each other, didn't they? For this love, they destroyed their families, careers, reputations. But when the dust settled and they were left alone with the consequences of their actions, they realized something terrible. Their affair had been exciting only because it was forbidden. When the secrecy disappeared, so did the feeling. Oscar blamed Miranda for losing his children. Miranda blamed him for losing her career and family. They fought, broke up, got back together, broke up again. I watched it all from the sidelines, from my new apartment with a city view that I bought with money from selling our old place. I returned to work, to my penguins in Antarctica, where everything was simple and honest. And the plagiarism story? 6 months later, experts proved the accusations were groundless. But it was too late. Miranda's reputation was destroyed forever. No one wanted to work with a screenwriter who possibly stole other people's ideas. During those months while everything was unraveling, I made sure to document every step of their deterioration. Not out of cruelty but to ensure they could never rewrite history. I had contacts in the industry, people I'd met through Miranda's work events over the years. I subtly fed them tidbits of information, never directly, always through intermediaries. A comment here, a shared concern there. The beauty of my plan was that I never had to openly attack Miranda. The industry did it for me. Once the seed of doubt was planted about her integrity, every past success was re-examined. Had she really written that award-winning episode, or had she stolen that too? The questions multiplied like cancer cells. Miranda tried to fight back. She hired lawyers to clear her name. She gave interviews proclaiming her innocence. But every defense sounded like desperation. And in Hollywood, desperation smells like blood in the water. Meanwhile, Oscar's life was crumbling in parallel. His job performance suffered. The distraction of the affair's aftermath, the constant fights with Miranda, the guilt over his children, it all caught up with him. His employer started questioning his judgment. How could someone responsible for safety be so reckless in his personal life? This was the calmest day before the storm. I received a call from Oscar one evening. He was drunk, slurring his words. "Why, William? Why did you do this to us? We made a mistake, but did we deserve this?" I let him talk. Let him spill his guts about how Miranda had changed, how she'd become bitter and resentful. How she blamed him for everything that went wrong. How their great love had turned into mutual destruction. "You want to know why, Oscar?" I finally said, my voice calm and measured. "Because you didn't just betray me. You became someone I didn't recognize. My best friend, the guy who stood up at my wedding and promised to support our marriage. You destroyed it from the inside. And you thought what? That I'd just accept it? That I'd let you both ride off into the sunset while I picked up the pieces?" He hung up. That was the last time we spoke. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. See, I'd learned something during my years studying penguins in Antarctica. These birds are fascinating creatures. When they choose a mate, they're loyal for life. But if that mate betrays them, abandons their eggs, the entire colony knows. The betrayer becomes an outcast. I wanted the same for Miranda and Oscar. I wanted their betrayal to be so public, so undeniable, that they'd carry the shame forever. I reached out to Kelly again, but this time with a different purpose. I suggested we do a joint interview, two people who'd been betrayed by the same affair, sharing their story. She was hesitant at first, but the anger eventually won out. We went on a popular podcast that focused on relationship issues. We didn't name names, but we didn't have to. The details were specific enough that anyone in our social circle would know exactly who we were talking about. A polar scientist and a safety inspector. A screenwriter working on a major streaming project. Best friends since college. The episode went viral. Over 1 million downloads in the first week. People were fascinated by the story, the best friend betrayal, the abortion, the elaborate revenge. Comments flooded in, almost universally supportive of Kelly and me. And the finale of this story surprised even me. Miranda's agency dropped her. Not because of the plagiarism accusations, those had been mostly cleared up by then. But because the podcast revealed details about her personal life that made her unmarketable. As one executive told a trade publication, audiences want to root for the people behind their favorite shows. It's hard to do that with this kind of baggage. Oscar lost his job 3 months later. The official reason was restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. His boss had listened to the podcast too. The most poetic justice came from an unexpected source. Remember Samantha Rich, Miranda's old rival who'd investigated the plagiarism claims? She ended up taking over Miranda's project. The series that was supposed to be Miranda's breakthrough became Samantha's triumph instead. It got greenlit, went into production, and became one of the streaming service's biggest hits. I watched the premiere from my apartment in Tucson. The credits rolled, and where Miranda's name should have been, there was Samantha's. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and toasted the screen. Justice, even delayed, was still sweet. Before I continue, please pause the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new interesting stories. Thank you. 2 years have passed now. I've rebuilt my life completely. I'm seeing someone new, a marine biologist I met during a research conference. She's nothing like Miranda. She's honest, straightforward, and she loves what I do. She actually wants to visit Antarctica with me next season. Miranda and Oscar are still together, but from what I hear through mutual acquaintances, it's a relationship held together by necessity rather than love. They can't afford to break up because they've lost too much already. Their reputations, their families, their careers, all gone. All they have is each other, and that's both their salvation and their prison. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. If my revenge was too elaborate, too cruel. But then I remember that phone call I intercepted, the abortion they hid from me, the months of lies and deception. And I remember how they weren't just having an affair, they were planning a future together. A future that involved erasing me from the picture entirely. You won't guess how this all ends. Last month, I received an email from Miranda. It was long, rambling, full of apologies and justifications. She explained how the affair started innocently. Oscar came to her with problems about his marriage. She was lonely with me gone so much. One thing led to another. She talked about the abortion, how she'd panicked when she found out she was pregnant, how Oscar had pressured her to get rid of it because it would complicate everything. She said she still loved me. That she'd made a terrible mistake. That she thought about me every day and wished she could go back and change everything. At the end of the email, she asked if we could meet. Just once. To talk. To find some kind of closure. I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me was tempted. Not to reconcile, that bridge was burned beyond repair, but to see her face to face. To tell her exactly how I felt. To make sure she understood the full scope of what she'd lost. But then I realized that's exactly what she wanted. Not closure, attention. She wanted to see if she still had any power over me. If she could manipulate my emotions one more time. So I did something that felt more final than any confrontation could be. I hit delete. Didn't reply, didn't acknowledge, didn't engage. Just erased her message like she tried to erase our marriage. Because the ultimate revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's making them irrelevant. I blocked her email address. Changed my phone number. Made sure there was no way for her to reach me. As far as I'm concerned, Miranda doesn't exist anymore. She's a ghost from a past life, a cautionary tale I might tell someday when someone asks why I'm so careful about trust. Oscar tried to reach out too through LinkedIn of all places. A professional message asking if we could clear the air for old time's sake. I reported him for harassment and blocked him too. The penguins in Antarctica mate for life. They're loyal, devoted, honest. I've spent years studying them, admiring them, learning from them. And I've realized that humans could learn a lot from these birds. But some humans are incapable of that kind of loyalty. Some people are so caught up in their own desires, their own narratives, that they'll destroy everything around them to get what they want. And when they finally get it, they realize it wasn't worth the cost. Miranda and Oscar got each other. The great love they'd risked everything for. And now they're stuck with it, watching it rot from the inside out, knowing that everyone around them sees them for what they truly are, betrayers who couldn't even make their betrayal worthwhile. As for me, I have my peace. I have my work. I have a future that doesn't include people who proved they weren't worthy of my trust. I have the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't just walk away from my marriage. I demolished it so completely that there's nothing left to salvage or second guess. Sometimes, late at night when I'm at the research station in Antarctica, I look out at the penguins and smile. These simple birds have more dignity, more integrity, more honor than the two people who once meant everything to me. And that's not sad. That's just reality. The last I heard, Miranda was trying to get work as a freelance script doctor, fixing other people's scripts for minimal pay and no credit. Oscar was working security at a shopping mall, a far cry from his corporate inspector job. They live in a small apartment in a bad part of town, paycheck to paycheck, dream to dream. They're together. Like they wanted. Forever bound by the ashes of everything they burned down. And me? I'm free. Truly, completely free. That's the real ending. Not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet, permanent separation. The kind of ending that doesn't make for good movies but makes for a good life. I went back to Antarctica last month for a 6-month research stint. The penguins are doing well. They're thriving in their colonies, raising their chicks, being faithful to their mates. It's beautiful in its simplicity. My new girlfriend, Sarah, video calls me every few days. She tells me about her research on coral reefs. I tell her about penguin breeding patterns. We're planning to write a joint paper on how climate change affects marine ecosystems. It's real, it's honest, it's built on shared interests and mutual respect. Don't turn it off, it's about to get intense. One afternoon, while I was observing a colony near the Ross Ice Shelf, my research assistant mentioned he'd heard a crazy story on a podcast about betrayal and revenge. He didn't know it was about me. I'd never told anyone at the station about my personal life, but he found it fascinating how the wrong parties had turned their pain into public advocacy. People like that, he said, they're heroes in a way. They didn't just take it lying down. They fought back smart. I nodded but said nothing. Let him think what he wanted. Because here's the truth that took me 2 years to fully understand. Revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about rebuilding yourself so completely that they become irrelevant to your story. Miranda and Oscar destroyed themselves. I just documented it. I just made sure everyone knew what they'd done. The consequences, the job losses, the family estrangements, the ruined reputations. Those were natural results of their actions becoming public. I didn't ruin Miranda's career. She ruined it by having an affair with my best friend while building a professional reputation based on integrity and emotional authenticity. The cognitive dissonance was always going to catch up to her. I didn't destroy Oscar's marriage. He did that when he decided his loyalty to his wife and children was less important than his desire for my wife. All I did was refuse to be the silent victim. I refused to let them control the narrative. I refused to protect their secrets while they destroyed my life. And that, ultimately, was my revenge. Not the financial maneuvers, not the public exposure, not even the orchestrated career demolition. My revenge was choosing myself, choosing honesty, choosing to move forward without them. Sometimes I imagine what would have happened if I'd confronted them immediately. If I'd walked in on them in that New York hotel room, caused a scene, demanded explanations. Maybe Miranda would have apologized, promised to change. Maybe Oscar would have begged for forgiveness, blamed it on temporary insanity. Maybe I would have believed them, tried to work through it, spent years in couples therapy trying to rebuild trust that was fundamentally broken. But I didn't do that. I played the long game. And the long game meant I came out of this with my dignity, my resources, and my future intact. They came out of it with nothing but each other and a shared history of destruction. That's the difference between reaction and strategy. Reaction would have given them the chance to paint me as the bad guy, the jealous, violent, irrational husband who couldn't forgive human weakness. Strategy meant they had to face the full consequences of their choices with no one to blame but themselves. The final piece of my revenge came 6 months ago, though I didn't plan it. I was invited to give a keynote speech at a major scientific conference in San Diego. My research on penguin loyalty and breeding patterns had gained significant attention, and the organizers wanted me to speak about what we could learn from animal behavior. I accepted. And in my speech, I talked about penguins' remarkable fidelity, how they return to the same mate year after year, how they share parenting duties equally, how the entire colony works together to protect everyone's offspring, how betrayal within a penguin colony is dealt with swiftly, the betrayer is ostracized, their genes less likely to pass on to the next generation. Nature, I said to the audience of hundreds, has evolved loyalty as a survival mechanism. Species that cooperate, that maintain trust, that honor their bonds, these species thrive. Betrayal is punished not through revenge but through natural consequences. The betrayer doesn't get to pass on their genes. They don't get the protection of the colony. They survive but they don't flourish. The speech went viral in scientific circles. It was later picked up by psychology websites and relationship blogs as a fascinating look at loyalty through an evolutionary lens. Miranda saw it. I know because someone told me she'd posted about it on social media, saying how interesting it was, how thought-provoking. She didn't mention knowing the speaker personally. She couldn't without explaining why we weren't married anymore. That was the final seal on my revenge. Not just moving on, but thriving so publicly and completely that she had to watch from the sidelines, unable to claim any connection to me, unable to share in any of my success. She'd made her choice. She'd chosen Oscar, chosen the affair, chosen to throw away 15 years for whatever excitement she thought she'd found. And now she got to live with that choice every single day, watching me become more successful, more fulfilled, more content than I'd ever been with her. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.